Last time we got into some layout, hand tools type equipment. This time we're going to get more into assembly and a little bit into power tools, smaller power tools. One of the big things I'm going to recommend for assembling your projects is going to be, as one of your first major tool purchases, a Kreg jig along with a high-speed corded drill for drilling the pocket holes. And you're going to be able to get success immediately. Between using the jig along with using clamps, you can screw stuff together. You can use glue if you want to. Most of this stuff is end grain to long grain, which is not a very strong glue joint to begin with. And the screws are plenty strong. The screws are extremely strong. It compares favorably or even superior to mortise and tenon joints, in my opinion. So, and they're very easy. The only downside that some people complain about, if the joint is going to be seen, is the aesthetics of these holes. But they also sell plugs that you can use to plug them. The Kreg jig is going to come with the appropriate step bit. Most of the system comes with a shroud that allows for dust collection. Highly recommend that. The jig clamps and holds the piece in place while you drill it. You're going to need to get the associated screws. When you're dealing with plywood and softwoods, you want to use a coarse one. I generally use the 1 1/4 inch screws for 3/4 inch stock, which is what I mostly deal with, like be plywood or hardwood. For general assembling of joints or boxes, I recommend these quick screws. What I like about these quick screws is their unique design. It's self-drilling and also has a feature where it's self-countersinking. Like the square heads, less chance of stripping out as compared to a Phillips. Talking about countersink, even though these screws countersink, I still like to use countersink bits. Particular one, the stop is non-marring. I really like these. So when you have exposed screws, it allows you, if you choose, to use plugs to cover up screw holes when you assemble boxes. When we get into hardware, like drawer slides and hinges and so forth, these VIX bits is going to be crucial. This allows you to use the piece of hardware as a template. Very unique design. It's self-centering in the whole of the hardware. So a set of VIX bits. A set of Forstner bits for making flat bottom holes. In the future, you'll see where those come in handy, but you want to get a good set of Forstner bits and a good set of twist bits. To go along with the correct joinery, you're going to need a means of clamping the joints together. If you don't have a bench with these extrusions like I have, this is an option. This is portable. Allows you to carry around this metal plate with feet, and you can use it for clamping. So it holds the boards flat and tight while you screw it in. In the beginning, you're not going to have a bandsaw, more than likely. You're not going to have, and even if you do have a bandsaw, there are certain situations where a bandsaw is not appropriate. With a jigsaw, you can carry it to the workpiece and you can freehand cut curves that is virtually impossible to do with a traditional circular saw. Drill driver. You're going to use this a lot in woodworking, from assembling projects that you screw together, hardware such as hinges and slides. These clamps, it's for mainly when you're attaching face frames to boxes. This is a special clamp that goes in to that pocket hole and allows you to attach the face frame to the box securely until you get screws in. So you're going to usually use multiples of these to hold it in place while you're screwing the ones that you don't have clamps in the holes. A sander, preferably one with a vacuum connection. It doesn't have to be an expensive vacuum. It could be a shop vac. If not, a respirator. Highly recommend. While we're on the subject of assembly tools, nail guns. Starting with a 18 gauge nail gun. You can get them with various capacities as far as size of nails that you can use. You're going to pay attention to that. Depending on the thickness of material is going to determine size fasteners that you're going to use. Then you have crown staple. I like to use crown staples. This particular one I really like for almost like clamps. When I'm making cabinet boxes, I use it to rough assemble the box before I get screws into them. If I could only own one nail gun, it would actually be this 23 gauge pinner. This particular one from Greg's would take up to a 2-inch nail. 2.5, I think. Is it 2 or 2.5? 2-inch. 2-inch nail. It would take up to a 2-inch nail. And the nail is almost the size of a needle, and it doesn't have a head. But you'll be surprised of the holding power. I really like that. This little one is very inexpensive. I got it off of Amazon, but from a company named Wayne. And what it is basically a T50 stapler, like the stapler you find at the store, the silver stapler. And these are good because of how wide they are. With the pressure set appropriately, they won't penetrate through the substrate. And you're mostly going to use this for backs, 1/4 inch or thinner material, for dust covers and backs of cabinets. This is very handy. The power behind the nail guns, because these are all pneumatic, is a compressor. Compressors are generally loud, and you don't want to have to hear it running all the time. So I generally recommend that you get say at least a 6-gallon. I would recommend 50-foot hose and a 6-gallon. This particular one is appropriate for running anywhere from 18, and the bigger the number in this case is the smaller the nail. So this would run anything from the 23 gauge up to a framing nailer. I barely run a framing nailer, but it can run a framing nailer. In the beginning, you may not necessarily have a outfeed or assembly table like the one that I'm utilizing right now. So I recommend a sawhorse. This particular sawhorse is from Kreg. The cool thing about it is it works with their clamps. So this is also a clamping surface similar to that plate over there. And if you get 2 of them, I highly recommend that. You either get 2 of these, or there's another product of theirs. It's called a workstation, which can work as an assembly table all on its own, but it's a very small surface. With the use of 3/4 inch plywood, you could join them together to create a assembly table or work surface. It can be used in conjunction with this and a sheet of plywood, or 2 of the workstation and a sheet of plywood. For breaking down your stock, here I have a track saw. This particular one is an expensive one, but more affordable ones have come onto the market made by companies like Chopbox and Grizzly. These are good for breaking down material. In many instances, it can take the place of a table saw if you don't have one. I still ultimately recommend a table saw. You will see why in the future. Breaking down stock, large flat stock, this is great. Now, if you can't afford a track saw, you can accomplish the work of a track saw with a regular circular saw, which is considerably cheaper. And I will show you in the future how to do that using a jig, a homemade jig that basically turns it into a track saw. A worst case scenario, if you're careful with picking out your sheet goods and if you're careful with transporting it, I'm saying all of this to say this. If you have a very good factory edge, meaning that it's not damaged or is not swollen from getting moisture or water damage or anything like that, and you have a good straight edge, in most instances when you're breaking it down, if you keep the factory edge, you can cut it freehand using a circular saw or even a jigsaw, and then clean it up on a table saw using the factory edge as your reference. With this go round, I think I hit it all. Everything you see here will up your game. In the next one, I'll get into the more stationary tools, the big boys. Have a good day. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to be notified when new content is dropped on this channel, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and drop a comment down below.